Hey MiniWarGamers, welcome to another episode of the Machine Shop with Ash. This is my weekly show about war games and war gamers, where we talk about something to do with the wargaming world. Either something that was sparked off my head by discussion with you guys in the comments, or just something that's been burning in my mind because of my own experiences in wargaming life. This week's episode is about gamer burnout. Yeah, that thing that happens to all of us. We can't usually put a name to it, and sometimes we can't even tell it's happening, but it's that thing that makes us resent what we're doing. I thought that was a worthy topic to talk about. So sometimes in everybody's life, you get a little sad and you don't really want to be doing what you're doing. So I thought it was a worthwhile kind of topic to talk about. It's a thing that is, I think, really prevalent in long-term gamers, or in gamers that play a lot of games, or in gamers who have a lot of different hobbies. So not necessarily just this hobby, miniature wargaming, but other hobbies in general that sort of divide up their attention. So let's take a look at gamer burnout. Let's talk about why it happens, and in my experience, what you can do about it. So what causes gamer burnout? Oh, that's a good question. I think that really it can be caused by a bunch of things. It can be caused by doing the same thing for a long time. So for instance, you are stuck in a rut. You've been either playing the same game, you've been playing it the same way, playing the same people, working on the same project, trying to finish the same army, or just really getting into a chronic sort of labor where you're trying to get something done and it's just been going forever. It's been going for a long time. As an example of that, I could talk about perhaps playing Games Workshop games. So I've been playing Games Workshop games for a long time. I'm not gonna say forever because I haven't been playing them as long as they've been around, but I've been playing them since the late 80s when I first discovered Citadel miniatures and Games Workshop games in general. And what happens from time to time, I would find, especially when I worked for Games Workshop, was I would get burned out on playing those games, or even collecting and painting those miniatures. So what I would usually do is I'd find myself midway through a project, like I need to paint X army for X time, and I would start to kind of like bell out. So I'd start a project. Let's say, for instance, one of my Space Marine armies. I have a very large Red Scorpion army, which actually is for sale right now. But anyway, a very large Red Scorpion army. When I started painting it, I started working on it, it was me figuring stuff out. So I was excited about it, and you can almost see a bell curve of quality. So I'm excited about it, I'm figuring it out, I'm getting in the groove of painting them, and I get up to about here where like I've figured out how I'm painting them, I'm super excited about them right now, and then I realize I've only painted like 2 tactical squads, and I'm painting the entire battle company of these guys, and I kind of plateau out. So now my excitement level, my quality of work, it's all about up here. And then there's like this downward slope. And at the end of it, I'm just like hating every guy that I'm painting. I'm mechanically going through the motions. I'm forcing myself to do it. And every time I look over at my paint station, I'm like, oh, it's just one more tactical squad, but I hate them so much I don't want to paint them. And I think that's a good example. So I can actually chart the progress almost mentally in my mind in a big long-term project, like painting a battle company with the guys, where there's my initial excitement and kind of like trepidation down here at the bottom, where I don't really know what I'm doing or how I'm doing it yet. There's that little bell curve incline where I figure out how I'm painting it, sort of like get my groove on for this job and this working on it. And then I start to like plateau around midway through the project usually. And by the end of it, I'm just angry and frustrated, and I hate looking at those things, and I'm so mad, and I don't ever want to see this gray color, this yellow color again in my entire life. And that seems to be true in any long-term project. I've built gaming tables and felt the same way, scenery collections and felt the same way. The last miniature game that I wrote, I definitely felt that way about, and it wasn't so much the writing the game. The initial like 40 or 50 pages of rules I wrote down, I'm like super excited about it. I can't wait to get home from work because I've had all these ideas while I'm driving my car, and I'm typing. And then it's the revisions. It's the like constantly having to go back and clean it out and clean stuff up, make sure that terms are all aligned, make sure that you make a change in one place that it gets changed everywhere else in the rules. Like, oh, the grind towards the end of a long project can get you down and make you burned out. The same goes with big modeling projects. So for instance, the first time I ever painted a Titan, something Titan sized, a Warhammer 40k Titan, you know, I'm doing it smart. I'm building it from the legs up. The legs, tons of time on every individual detail, super excited about them. By the time I'm getting to like the right arm, I'm just done. I'm like, I just finished this thing. I don't want to look at it anymore. I'm trying to get this done in a weekend. Like, I just don't want this to be in my life anymore. And I've actually had projects stall out because I was doing them, in sections like that because they were a big project and I was trying to break it into bite-sized chunks, and just sit like half finished on a painting table because of it. They just don't get done. So there's kind of stages in all of these sort of like burned out things, and this was all sort of me talking about projects here. But I found myself, I would have a compulsion to try and prove myself. Like that would be a stage in this sort of like burnout for me. Was no, I'm gonna get it done. I would compulsively work on it, even if I wasn't into it anymore. I would get slop paint on things and just like be compulsively trying to do it. I would get into this like work harder like rut where I was hating what I was doing, but I thought that maybe if I worked harder, I would like just push through the wall and be okay. And then there was this whole revision of value where like the level of painting in one squad in this big project is not the same as the level of painting in another squad, or like the level of painting on the left leg of this Titan is not quite the same as the level of painting on the right side of this Titan. And then finally, there's that complete denial in me as to what's making me mad. Or what's making me frustrated. I start getting mad at my paintbrushes. Oh, I need better paintbrushes. My paintbrushes are making me mad. Or, oh, I'm getting mad at my paint colors. Like, oh, I don't like this gray. This Citadel gray is no good. I want to go get this Vallejo gray because then all my problems would be solved by this Vallejo gray. And I would start like pushing it in other places. The denial wouldn't be that what I'm doing, that the project itself is making me frustrated. It would be that there was some other thing that I could like pour all my hate into that was making me burned out and frustrated. And it would be the side cutters I had, or the quality of glue that I had, or the paintbrush that I had, or whatever it was. And that seemed like a cycle. So those are 4 key things in a big long-term project. The compulsion to prove myself, working harder, a revision of my values in the project itself, and then this like denial of like either whatever the emerging problems were or of like what the actual problem was. And likewise, I've gotten burned out in literally playing games. If I've played a game too much, and I talked about this a lot, but 6th edition fantasy, I got really burned out on. I played tons of tournaments of 6th edition fantasy. I played tons of games of 6th edition fantasy. And by the end of 6th edition, I just wasn't super into the game anymore. I would build armies with like a cap basically of 2,000 points in my head, because the way 6th edition was structured, from 1,000 to 1,999 points was no lords, and then from 2,000 to 2,099 points was 1 lord. So you typically, this 2,000 point slice was what I built armies to. I would literally I'd get an army book, I'd write an army list, it would be exactly 2,000 points, I would build that army, done. I would go no further. And then I would play pitch battle, because yes, I've discovered since that there were some other scenarios peppered around in 6th edition, but really pitch battle was the one that we all played. Like in my meta at least, or in my environment and in the tournament scene in 6th edition in North America, you typically just played pitch battle. It was kill the opponent's general, capture the battle standard, hold table quarters, capture flags, and 12 inches on, go. And that was it. So yeah, there was other ways of playing Warhammer Fantasy back then. The General's Companion provided skirmish rules. There's Warhammer Skirmish. There was Siege. There's other cool stuff. But the sort of standard gaming modus operandi was 2,000 points. And by the end of it, I just wasn't interested in Warhammer Fantasy Battle anymore. I had a Chaos Army at the time. I had my Dwarf Army, which I've worked on forever. And I actually built my Ogre Army during 6th edition Fantasy. And I stopped being into playing the game. People would be like, hey, you want to come play Fantasy? And I would just say, no. Or, hey, you want to come to a fantasy room? I'd be like, no. And then because I was working for Workshop at the time too, I would have to do stuff around Warhammer, Fantasy Battle 6th edition, and my heart wouldn't be in it. I was just done. I was like, I don't really want to. No, can somebody else run that tournament or do that thing? Because I'm really not excited about Warhammer Fantasy right now. And again, I would find myself getting into like these traps where I'd either make myself play the game. I'd feel like that same compulsion to like be a part of it and do something with it. I would try and just work through the wall, not realizing that it was just because I wasn't interested in the game that much anymore, that it was a problem. Again, my revision of values, like even when like new army books would come out and my army that I'd made at the time, that 2,000 points, was probably competitive when it was made. it wasn't competitive anymore, maybe 2 or 3 army books later in 6th edition, and I just didn't care. Like, I was like, nah, whatever, I'll just keep playing. I'm not gonna paint any more units. I'm not interested in this anymore. I'll just keep playing with the same army that I have, and I don't really care if I lose or not anymore. And then I would get mad at other things. Like, I would get mad at those army books. It wasn't that my army was no longer good. It was that somebody's army book came out that was better than, or did, it basically took into account what my army did and did it better or whatever. And I would get mad at that army book. Or I would get mad at that tournament organizer. Or I would get mad at something else. And I would totally deflect blame. And it wasn't the fact that I just like literally was sick of playing the game. It was that I would find some other reason to be angry or be upset at people. And that was how I identified that I was burned out. So I've had moments in my life, long projects, playing an edition of game too long, or really focusing on a game too long, where I've come to realize, I now recognize the signs of what it is for me being burned out. And those 4 things, either I'm focusing a bunch of rage into things that aren't in my control, like new army books coming out, rules changing, formats changing, tournament organizers, or I'm focusing all kinds of like time and attention into grinding on something, like I'm doing it even though I'm not enjoying it anymore, and that my values change. Like I no longer hold myself to the same standard or apply the same sort of set of mores or like self-expectation on something. Those are all key signs for me that I'm getting burned out, that I am no longer having fun with what I'm doing, and that I should make a change. So let's talk about that, because I think that's the next thing. Is the big key here is that when you are getting burned out on something, you can't fool yourself into thinking that it's the thing that's burning you out. It's how you're approaching and doing the thing that is burning you out. So I was never getting burned out on miniature wargaming. It was whatever I was doing in regards to miniature wargaming that was actually making me unhappy and getting trapped in a cycle of just trying to do it the same way over and over again. So let's look at ways that you can avoid, come back from, and basically recognize and adapt to the fact that you're getting burned out. Okay, so change. That is my #1 bit of advice for anybody suffering from any kind of gamer burnout. Change. First thing you have to do in order to make a change, though, is you got to identify what it is that's getting you down, right? So for instance, in a long project, I was really getting bummed painting my Red Scorpion army. Like, I was just slugging through and trying to finish a battle company, because most of my hobby time in that period was being spent on building models, painting models, and that was it. That was all that I was doing. So what I did was, I went and I played a game. The models I didn't have exactly what I wanted to have done. I just got the models that were finished, put them on the table, grabbed somebody who was a good buddy of mine that I always enjoy playing games against, and we played a just cuz game. It was a game that there was no work attachment to it for me. It was just grab some dice, go in my basement, throw some scenery down on the table, line up, and just grab whatever we were working on at the time, didn't worry too much about what our first composition was, and play a game. I felt so much better afterwards, it's not even funny. Why? Because I got to spend some time doing what it probably was I really wanted to do, which was enjoy the payoff of all my hard work. I was there trying to paint 150 to 200, Space Marine miniatures, and I hadn't taken a break from it in a really long time. And not only that, I hadn't got to enjoy the reward of my hard work for a very, very long time. So even just taking a break halfway through, I probably painted maybe 30 or 40 miniatures for that army at the time. I got to completely reinvigorate myself by just putting some energy into something else, into something that was relaxed, and it was really what I wanted. What I really wanted was the project to be done, to be over, but taking a break and doing something different with that project, I came back and I saw it in a whole new light, and I got to enjoy the latter half of that project again. It reset my clock basically for being burned out by putting some energy into doing the thing that I really wanted to be doing, which was actually, enjoying the reward of having a newly painted fresh set of miniatures and playing a game with a friend. So that was really, really successful for me. I think the big key element there too, there was no work element involved to it, because one of the reasons I was painting that Red Scorpion army was for Paint or Die, which was a annual cancer fundraiser we used to do in the Canadian office. There was no timeline, deadline. It was just, hey, let's just relax and play some games. Put some energy into something else in that hobby that that isn't work right now, that is just for you and is totally unrelated to anything that you're obligated to do. And that reset the clock, that reinvigorated me. When it came to being burned out for Warhammer Fantasy, again, change. What did I do? I played Blood Bowl a whole bunch. Blood Bowl wasn't even big at the time. It was just, we found my Blood Bowl miniatures, I grabbed some pitches, and we all played, me and a bunch of friends played some Blood Bowl teams. And it was still kind of Warhammer Fantasy related because it's in this like pseudo Warhammer Fantasy universe that has discovered basically American football and become obsessed with it. And so all wars are now done on the gridiron. But that just like, I still ended up painting some miniatures and I still ended up playing some games. But because it was different, it wasn't what I was really ground down on and felt like was really the same and sort of like repetitive. I got really excited about wargaming again. I just put some energy into something else. And it became a habit for me, was whenever I felt like, because I was at work and I was working for Games Workshop, I was getting burned out on Games Workshop products, I would wander into random game store X and I would look at, well, what's the new skirmish game that's kind of cool out there that I could buy 5 or 10 models and learn the rules for and try out. And I was notorious with my employees and with my friends for being the guy that would come back from a trip or something with like 2 starter sets for some miniature game and be like, hey, guess what? This weekend we're going to play this game. I think one year for Christmas, actually, I bought a bunch of my staff. Actually, it was the year they came out, 2004. I bought a bunch of my staff the 1-player faction starters for War Machine. And I was like, this is what we're doing. We're all playing War Machine this week because I don't know, I feel like doing something different and I'm kind of bored with what we're doing. So let's all paint these and give it a try and play some games. Anima Tactics, me and my buddy Christian did that. I came back from a business trip to Vancouver and they had these like little like 3 model starters for Anima Tactics and we both painted them up and played a bunch of games. And it was stupid, silly fun. And over the years, it's probably one of the things that's fed my compulsion to like collect kitchen table games. Was because I worked in the industry for so long, I would keep myself excited about miniature wargaming by doing something fresh and different and interesting and just grabbing these little tiny games that, you know, I could paint the army for in a weekend and then throw down some dice, have a buddy over, you know, throw some scenery on a table and learn a new game. And that would reset my clock and reinvigorate me from getting burned out on miniature wargaming. So that's my advice. If you feel like you are currently burned out on what you're doing, whether it's playing this edition of a game, playing with the army book that you have, if you feel yourself directing resentment, oh, the game's gonna be ruined because blah changed, or the game's gonna be ruined because blah changed, and you're no longer happy, that feeling is being driven not just by those changes, but those changes they're becoming magnified, they're becoming bigger in your own head because what you're doing is no longer fun. So either change up what you're doing. That doesn't mean abandoning a game altogether. That doesn't mean just throwing your stuff on eBay and getting rid of it. Maybe try something new. Either, you know, play 40K a different way. Play kill teams for a weekend, and just enjoy playing 40K a different way. Trust me, every army is completely reset basically in kill teams because it's a totally different meta. It's a totally different way of playing the game. Or play a skirmish game. Play, I don't know, a different edition. If you play miniature war games, you probably play several different miniature war games and abandon, like you don't have to abandon one to just put some energy and attention to playing another one for a while. Me and my buddies would do that all the time. We would cycle between games as our interest sort of waxed and waned. And it means that you will end up having games that you don't play for a few months. But that's okay. They don't have to be gone. You don't have to abandon them. This isn't a world of absolutes where it's all ones and zeros. And you can only be in love with like one miniature wargame at a time. You can love all of them. Change up what you're doing. Play different people. Maybe paint some miniatures for a while. Maybe play some games for a while. Whatever it is that you're not doing right now, try diverting some energy into something else, and I promise you, you will feel less burned out. Why? Because a change is as good as a rest. If what you're doing has you ground down and it makes you want to abandon the hobby and throw it all away, all those feelings, all that gut reaction is just coming from being burned out. So change what you're doing, try something different, and I promise you, you will come back to your hobby feeling better. So yeah, I don't know what that thing is for you, because only you know what that thing is for you, but gamer burnout, it is a real thing. It's just like any other kind of burnout in life. And the best thing that you can do is put some energy into something that's just for you, that's different, and that reinvigorates your love for what you have. So there it is, there's my talk about gamer burnout. Let's check out what's on the painting table this week. All right, so I felt a little shamed of my on the painting table from last week because it was after Christmas and I didn't really have a lot done. So I had some stuff finished. Yeah, that's right. Threw down, pushed through the wall. I actually wasn't burned out. I was just busy. And I'm actually really excited about some of the stuff I'm working on right now. So let's check out what I got painted last week. All right, so here's this week's on the painting table. First things first, Beard Force 1, Beard Force 2, and Beard Force 3. I finished my gyrocopters. You guys saw these in various states of just basically primed and airbrushed silver. They're now done. So there's Beard Force 1, there's Beard Force 2, and there's Beard Force 3. My triumvirate of gyrocopters. I almost feel bad using 3 gyrocopters in the game, but then I don't because they're so good. So by taking 3, I can have 2 with Vanguard. I can have 1 not with Vanguard for point defense on my war machines. And these things are amazing. You can charge chariots off the board with them just by getting a flank charge. You're usually up by 2 and then only the crew's fighting. They're just amazing. Being able to do bombing runs once per game. Drop a flame template basically of strength 3 armor piercing anywhere you want. Clarence, bring your Dark Riders. Bring them! I have 3 gyrocopters now and I won't care. So there we go. There's Beard Force, the Beard Force, basically the Beard Brigade, flying around on my gyrocopters. They're all finished. I also got some containers done. I've been working on my terrain collection for Infinity at home because I'm building and finishing off my Infinity table collection of terrain. And this pretty much caps it out. I got a few walls and bits and pieces to finish out, but here's 3 cargo containers. They're from Shark Mounted Lasers. I airbrushed some color onto them and then just sponged on some battle damage. I forgot I found this in a box. I painted a whole bunch of crates. There's actually 10 more of these. Here's 1. These are there's a bunch. I can't remember. I have tons of micro art crates. And I also did the same one on these. I only have 1 here to show you though because the rest of them are actually at home right now. And then I have my ITS objective room. This is again from Shark Mounted Lasers. It's got a removable top, which I don't know if I can do this one hand. There you go. Yay! It doesn't have any scenery in it right now, but I do have scenery for it. Crates and stuff. So this is the 8x8 inch ITS objective room. All the doors actually open. I'm just not going to pull them out right now. And again, I just painted my airbrush, and then I just added some details, just the hazard striping and the little red there on the up arrows. So I have my objective room. This was the last building I needed for my my Infinity table. Oh, there's one open door. Apparently one of the doors fell in. So you can go inside and out of it. So that's my little scenery update for Infinity. You'll be able to see that stuff in my own videos on my own YouTube channel, which is Gorilla Miniature Games. I'll be playing some games, actually with the same guy that you saw play Infinity against me this week in the O12, or last week in the O12 AARs. Christian came over and spent the weekend playing Infinity with me. So you'll be able to see that on my channel. And then last but not least, I've been painting Lucius for the guild. This is one of the plastic Malifaux minis. So he's like the governor's lawyer, basically. And yeah, I've been painting him up. He's just base coated right now, but I'll get him finished relatively soon. So that's part of my growing new Malifaux collection. I have other Malifaux minis that I've painted up too, but they're all old. And you'll probably get to see them sometime in the future too. So there we go. There is on the painting table for, I guess, this is mid-January 2015. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Once again, you can get in touch with me to talk back about the episode or to chat about your ideas for episodes of the Machine Shop, either on the YouTube comments, which is usually what I see, like reply to a comment I make, or through the comments on MiniWarGaming, which are a bit harder to follow, or ideally on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/outofthebasement-into-the-streets. Those are all great ways to get in touch with me. The Facebook one, though, and the YouTube reply or my YouTube channel typically are the easiest ones to check because they go right to my phone and I'm more able to reply. So yeah, we'll chat at you there. Hopefully I will see you in the next Machine Shop. And until then, happy wargaming.